lazy loading CDK components, right? So by using virtual scrolling component. So yeah, so we learned about one CDK virtual for component, how to use it. So now one more example we need to learn is about how do we implement different styles, different effects, and work with them, right? Technically, how we can manage the other material components and work with them. In Angular material component, this CDK virtual scroll, we learned how it works and uses implementation for lazy loading actually. So now some other options how we can manage, right? So how to use various other elements and components to work with. We will see that. So I already showed you one resource location actually. So that is Angular IO. So material, right? So material, Angular material. So in this Angular material provides some components. We can use those components and we can work with those components actually. Technically, how to implement the components also, one example I will show you. Last session we saw CDK. In that, so many will be there. You saw scrolling, how we can use scrolling. Depending on different requirements, you can implement, right? Like you have portal, and you can see the portals. So it will keep the content in this way. That means accessing the data and displaying the data in any specific location. How to implement, how to use them, we can try with the different components. Their API will provide information. Examples will provide the logic for that. You can see this is the general example. And what is the TypeScript required for it? If any TypeScript required, we can use the TypeScript. And some CSS, whatever CSS. How to explore these examples, I will show you in a separate point. We will discuss about that. Initially, we just came here to understand how to implement the components. Now, after knowing about the lazy loading, how it works actually, now we will see other material components. So in Angular material components, how to use them. Yeah. So the material components that we already worked with. So this is the example I showed you, how to implement lazy loading. Yeah. Now some more basics we will see. Actually, there is certain order for implementing components. So Angular material components. So how to implement Angular material components and how to use them. So if I show you 1-2 options, others you can try by yourself. So many components are there. What are the basic steps here is means to implement actually to implement Angular material components. Actually, to implement the Angular material components, so we need some steps to follow. First is you have to identify the module required for component. You need to identify the module required for component. Second, you have to identify the module dependencies. Actually, so a module depends on some other modules. So module depends on some other modules. In that case, so we need to identify the dependencies. So identify the dependencies. If any dependency is missing, dependency is nothing but so a dependency specifies the required support for the component you are trying to implement. So a dependency specifies the required support for the component you are trying to implement. That is what actually dependency is. We need to know the dependencies. It's very important. That means it's not so easy to implement material components without knowing its module and its dependency. Now you have to verify the API provided by Angular material library for implementing any component. Actually, API gives you a set of directives required for component. API gives you a set of directives required for component actually. So that is important. So we have to implement, in order to implement Angular material, you need all these actually. So a lot of work is there. That means we need to handle so many things. I will show you. That means how that concept works. I will show you. That means how we can manage and work with this. Right. Technically, if I can give you one example, based on that, you can try with others. Right. So let's see. Generally, first one simple example I will show you. Means how we can implement any material component, like suppose a date picker. So a date picker. How we can implement a date picker? How we can use a date picker? how do we work with date picker? One simple basic approach I will show you. So based on that, you can implement others also. So let's see how we can implement a date picker, how we can configure and use the date pickers. So actually, if you are designing any component and in that you want a date picker so that up and down user can choose any date. One of the main problem that we generally face with these date pickers is actually HTML provides input type date, but it is not supported on every browser. It is not supported on every browser. Due to that, what happens? So we need to write in such a way that it should work on every browser. So for that, generally, we require some additional modules and additional options to use. So we will see them. What are those and how do we work with them? So let's see one simple example. Actually, date picker is one component, and Angular 10 provides a new date picker control component, and that means it changed from its previous version actually. Now our Angular material is using 10x version. So the date picker is latest. Date picker is with the latest features. That is actually. So currently, how this works, how to implement and how to use it. Let's see. Generally, as I told you, to implement any component and work with that, first you need to identify the module required for component. Actually, date picker requires two modules. So date picker requires the following modules. Two important modules are there. So one important module is mat date picker. Mat date picker module. That is one module. Another module is mat native date module. That is another module. And actually, this is dependency for date picker. That is the dependency for date picker actually. That means date picker cannot work. So without this, date picker cannot work without this. You need this, right? That is one option. That is important. That means we need to first identify the module required here. Now, some more basics you need to know about material library is actually when you are using the material library, the hierarchy. So the hierarchy of placing the components, the main container, child containers, the attributes, the properties that you use are also important. Generally, if you know a little bit of Bootstrap, so then you know that generally Bootstrap has a lot of attributes and components and options that we generally require. So first I will show you. Before going into date picker, we need to know some more elements actually. So some more elements. So what are the elements required before going into that date picker like contents, right? What are the options we need actually? So here one more, to implement Angular material components, you should know that you should know, you have to know, you must know the hierarchy. You must know the hierarchy of component hierarchy of components. That means, so in which component, the current component fits, in which component the current component fits. You should know it. That is very important. That means in which component the current component fits. You must know that. You must know that. Hierarchy is important. If you miss the hierarchy also, it will not work. That is the reason even today I teach you how to use materials. In first attempt, many people may not get the same. They will face some problems because they might be missing some order. If you miss a little order, then it is not going to work. That means importing the library, configuring the library, using the library, all this. Hierarchy also very important. If you know the hierarchy, then you can place it correctly. If hierarchy is missing, then you will not get the desired output what you are looking for. Lot of errors will come. That's very important, right? So let's see how this hierarchy also works. And according to the hierarchy, some basic things that you should know, general things that you should know, and how they are used, how they work, what are the basic points actually. So the basic components, the basic components required for the basic components required for material design. Material design. What are the basic components required for material design? So most commonly used components for material design, you actually need a form field. Form field. You need an input. We need a form field and we need an input. And very commonly used options, you know, we need button. So button. That means the regular basic components required for material design are the form fields, the input, and the button. For that, what are the properties required and how to use them? First, I will show you this, and then we can design this date picker. So let's keep the date picker for a later point. Why? Because we need to understand the hierarchy from the basic level how to design. Actually, form field is nothing but it is just like a form group. It is used to group a set of controls. Technically, it is used to group a set of controls. So I will just show you actually what is the concept of form field. That means first you need to know about form field. So form field. First you need to know about form field. Actually, mat form field. So mat form field is a component used to wrap several Angular material components. Components is used to wrap material components and apply common text field styles such as the underline, floating label, and hint hint messages. All such things are done by mat form field. So that is important technically. So that means whenever you are designing, whenever you are designing any angular material component, so angular material components must be kept inside this form field. It must be kept inside the form field. And what can work inside the form field? So the components that can work inside form field, are the components that can work inside form field are, we have input. So we have text area. You know, with input, so many things will come. You have select. So you have like mat select. You have like mat chip list like this. These are the components used for that. These are the components used inside the form field. Now, technically, how this is going to work, how it is going to deal with that, means how it is going to work. So let's see, means one simple point about how to use them, right? So that means how we can use the form fields and work with the form fields. And this is important. Why? Because generally, when we are displaying the contents, then presenting them requires a container, and form field is one container which we need that actually, right? So let's see how to use it and how we can configure it. So that is mat form field. And important, what is the module required for mat form field? And the module required for form field is, the module required for form field is mat form field module. And you have to import from. So it should require from. So @net angular / material / form field. So it is required from that particular location. So the module required for form field is this mat form field, and it is from this particular location. You need to do that. Remember the order clearly here. Why? Because if you miss the order, then you cannot achieve what you are looking for, right? That's the reason. So first step, I will show you just the basic here. The first step is, let's create a component here. Example. I'm generating a component here. Let's create a component. So ng generate component. So ng generate component and form field. Okay. Form field and skip test. Let's keep this form field in the startup. Okay. Let's keep this form field in the startup. Right. So form field will be in the startup. Okay. And in the index, I will start with that form field. So from the index, I will start with the form field. Okay. Form field. So let's run this and see initially the basic. The steps are very important. Observe that. So localhost 4200 is currently this. Yeah. So form field is working fine. Now let's go to the form field HTML. Now here I want to use form field. So here we want to use the form field and work with the form field. So div, I'm just using a class as container. Okay. Now we need a form field option to use and configure here form field. First step, that means the step-by-step process I will give you. First point is you have to go to app.module.ts and import the required module. That is the first thing. Okay. Now required module and its dependencies. The next step, what you have to do is register the modules required for component. So we need to register the modules. That is the first step, how to manage. That is the first step. So what we are doing is, so go to app module. First we need to import the module. So here we are using import, and here I defined mat, that is from Angular /material. In that we have form field. From that we have to import form field mat form field module. We have to use that mat form field module. So, and that is imported. That is the first step. And that I have done here. So we need to import that. So we are importing that. So that is done here. So that is importing. We are importing that here. After that, we need to register. That also you know generally. So register this mat form field module. So in the modules, we have to say mat form field module. So we have to import that mat form field module and register it. We need to register that here. I am registering it here. The mat form field module is registered. I'm just giving only what is need to be registered. Okay, that is registered. After that, now we can use that module. That means we can import and use in the application. That means you can use it in your examples. That means you can keep it in your example. That means now you can access and use in any component by using its directive. By using its directive. By using its directive, we can use that. We can handle it. Generally, how we can manage that, right? So how we can configure. So usually the option is, let's take here in the design. Now here we are configuring. So mat, so form field, you can see mat form field is there. Right. Now the mat form field, inside the mat form field, you can keep some contents. Inside the form field, you can keep contents. Like we can use mat label. We can use a mat label. Mat label is for displaying labels. So we can use mat icons, mat options and all. So let's stick to general form field first, basic. Then we can go with others. Huh? So if I go with all in one attempt, it will be complicated. So here, mat form field is defined. Generally, earlier, we were using a div. And in Bootstrap, we were using a form group actually. We were using a form group. And here we are using a mat form field. In this form group, I am using a label. So I'm just showing the difference. Here I say username, and below that we need a div, and here we say input, and we use a class called form control. So that is what actually general approach how we define. So how we define. So if we want some attribute like placeholder, I'm adding a placeholder like so username. I'm defining that username placeholder. So that is the traditional. That is the traditional. So with general bootstrap, and it usually looks like this. This is a general text box. This is the general username. This is the traditional one. Okay. In the mat form field, now we can have a mat label. Mat label. So I said some password. Okay, I'm using password. Or same, I will say username because I'm showing you the difference here. After that, I am just adding an input here. This input this input is using a material input. This is having a placeholder, so username. And you can see here, mat form field contains a username, and it looks normal. It looks normal. Nothing special here. And now this input, so that means that is the username, and the mat input is defined. Some issues you will face here. So what are the issues you will face here is when you go to the inspect, you can see in the console, you will have an error. The error related to form field. So you can see mat form field. So must contain a mat form field control. Must contain a mat form field control. That means it should contain a mat form field control. So usually mat form field must contain a form field control. It is saying that, right? So that is the point here. So form field control. That's error actually. Why? Because this mat label I defined, so it's fine. So it is not displayed here. That means label is not displayed. And this is input. So actually input in material will use a mat input. So it will use a mat input. But these are all not available because everything that you want to use, you have to import it actually. You have to import it. So that means mat input is not there. So we will first import that mat input also. Mat labels, mat inputs. That means here I am using. Yeah. So we need to import the module. So import and so from. So Angular, so @Angular / material. And you have a mat input, right? So we have input. We have an input. So we have that input here, configured input here, right? So we are configuring that input. Yes. So these are not dependencies. Already I told you, only one attribute is there. These are not dependencies. I'm just showing you how mat form field can handle the functionality. So you need to just understand about only that. I'm just showing you the difference actually. Form field have no dependencies. So technically form field have no dependencies. It is finished. But I am just showing you how it works actually. I am showing you that these are the components kept inside the form field. In that I am using an input here currently inside that. They are not dependencies. Mat form field doesn't have any dependency. It is only one form module you need. What is its ability? I am showing you with combination of some other controls actually, with combination of some other controls. That means this mat form field, I am adding here as a mat input. So mat input module, we are using mat input module. And we need to use that mat input module. If you have mat input module, then we can assign that to this input by using mat input. So we are configuring this as mat input. Now the difference between I will show you the difference between this. What is difference between the form field, general bootstrap, and what is difference with this mat form field and its update? You can see that the input will be like this now. You can see the input will be like this. And of course, the width is normal. We can set width to 100%. We can define a class. We can keep the width to 100%. Then it will occupy entire. So that is not the point here. Initially, actually, I am showing you what is the difference with the mat input. You can observe here. Now your text box with placeholder, I click inside it, then it will have some animation like this. Now the label comes here. And this is the placeholder. I click outside it, then only this option will be displayed. So this is the label. And so enter username. That is the label actually. And it is showing that enter username. I click inside it, then it goes up and the placeholder comes. So the placeholder is defined there. That means automatically the label will come here. This is the label. And when I click inside it, then it goes up and it will ask to enter the username. This looks more attractive and effective than your bootstrap input also. This makes better. Why? Because so you need not to waste the space for a label, for a placeholder. We can simply just display the content in this way. That looks better. That means when I click here, so when I'm typing something and I came out, then it will be like this. So here I just showed you a combination of two things. One is, so that is input, and input you can get a good appearance by using mat input. That means here in our current example, I'm importing two options. I just showed you form field. So in that I just kept you input. I will detailedly tell you about input later. So some more points are there. Actually, this form field, usually this is the form field, which is displaying your content. Form field actual defined. So this is form field, and access the component in the directive by using its directive in .html page. So how we do that in the HTML page, I'm just giving this syntax. In the HTML page, I'm just giving this syntax temporarily. And very important is in order to use mat input. So here I will just keep a note saying that import mat input module into app module, app.module.ts to try this example. Later input module, I will explain detailedly how it happens, right? This is mat form field. This is how you implement the mat form field. One more important point is mat form field. So form field is provided with a set of attributes. Every component have some set of attributes, which can make it more better. Set of attributes make it more better. That means set of attributes. That means you can simply say that here, every material component is provided with set of attributes. Form field uses the attribute appearance. It uses the attribute appearance with the following values. It uses appearance with several values like legacy. So like standard. So like fill, like outline. It uses different values. So that makes the form field more better. Like that, hundreds of attributes and properties may present for every component actually. So we need to learn and know about all of them from their material library. So nobody can teach you all the attributes, options, and everything. Huh? That's just because that depends on the requirement, how we are using, right? Yeah, mat input is different from HTML controls. Haven't you seen any difference here? What do you think, Mr. or Miss or some KM? If you can keep your full name so that I can address you. What do you think? Haven't you seen any difference here? Are you unable to find any difference between ordinary input and this mat input? Only appearance. Haven't you seen any change in the behavior? No change in the behavior or appearance. Then obviously there is some difference, right? Yeah. So that is the concept actually, right? Functionally, there will be no difference. Functionally, input is input, right? So this is just behavioral, right? How it works behavioral, right? We have different appearance styles. Generally, I can give an appearance style. So different appearance style, like form field can have an attribute appearance. Can use an attribute like appearance. So can use an attribute like appearance. So appearance for, I can give some attributes like outline is an appearance. That means I'm defining some appearance attribute. I'm using some appearance attribute for it. Outline. You can see now it comes with an outline. You can see mouse over that outline will be highlighted for you. And that means several attributes it will have, right? And when I click inside it, you can see that. When I click inside it, then it will be there. You can see it changes to the placeholder. That means it will work like a placeholder now. This is like a placeholder. So that means with an outline with a placeholder appearance, we can give that appearance for the text box. Automatically it changes the behavior to a placeholder actually. So that means it will actually change the behavior like a field set with legends, right? It will give that appearance. We have standard appearance. We have outline appearance. We have legacy normal appearance. We have fill appearance. So that means the fill appearance, it will give you in this way. That is a fill type appearance. And I click inside, it will be in this way. Means background color. The fill appearance will be in that way. So, and outline. So outline appearance, then it will give you that outline appearance for that. it will be in this way. So how you present it. So that is a form field, how we can use a form field. Now, generally, form field can have a lot of things inside it. So depending on requirements, so we need to define various options. Later, you can use it more better once you know about how to use the forms also. We will learn about Angular forms. When you learn about Angular forms, then we can make its appearance more better. Because for that, we need some forms concept to understand. Then we can use in several real examples also, along with functionalities. Functionality currently nothing special here. Why? Because suppose I want to access the username entered. Then how do you access the username entered inside that particular text box? So that means now I go to the TypeScript here. I'm accessing here. So I will go to the TypeScript and here I'm defining. So a property as username. And I'm binding that username property here to the input. That means we are using ng model is a username. So it is using username. And whatever the username entered, so I want to collect it here. So somewhere here or somewhere below. So I want to collect it here. Say hello and that username. I want to get that username and display here. Now it is a general like our input element here, and I click and I entered some name here. So, and it is working fine, normal. There is nothing special about it, right? Only the appearance and its behavior will be different. Its appearance and behavior will be different. Appearance and behavior will be different. Functionality will be same, nothing change, right? It will work as your general input. Whatever you type inside, it will display, get the value and use. Only the appearance is changing, right? Now if you can see this, then you will say that, okay, this looks a little better than what I am using in Bootstrap actually. So that means this looks more interactive, more responsive. Very important is it fits on various browsers. Even on mobile also it's will be the same. So an example. So for this, so what is the example? Here we are just using a simple example. So demo means a form field, formfield.component.ts. Yeah, in this just we have one property. So just basic property here. And that's not at all required. Just I given you a point here. So, and in the HTML, so formfield.component.html. In the HTML, we are adding this. This is an example. I kept both of them just for our understanding sake to know the difference between the Bootstrap things and our form here. That means how the mat labels will work, how the mat form field will work, and what is the intention of this mat inputs, how they work. How we can get the values and use the values, we will see that. In another example, we can handle that. So in the components, so that is one regular first thing is whatever you want to keep inside, means whatever you want to design through materials. So make sure that all your material related components are kept inside the form field. So that is actually mat form field, how we can work with the mat form field. And once you know mat form field, and now if I want like a date picker, so I want like a date picker. I want to use like a date picker and I want to implement a date picker. Then generally how we can use the date picker. So date picker generally requires some icons, some options. So, and little bit logical approach between a communication between these components will change. The communication between these components will change a little bit. It is important to understand that also. Suppose I want to use a date picker, then actually I need to import these two modules, mat native date module, mat date picker module. So let's see how we can implement that. So I will clean up this. Okay, so let's see how we can implement. So date picker, so how we can manage that. Suppose I am using just a simple basic, right? So I'm using here if mat form field, okay? In that, so we have a mat label. So the mat label, say choose departure date, right? Departure, okay, departure date. So, and here we are defining a text box input and how you will give a material look for this. So mat input is the material look for this. Okay. And here important is generally mat date picker uses mat date picker. That means what? Some directives. So directives required for date picker. What are the directives required for date picker? One is we need mat date picker. That is one. Another one, we need mat date picker. So mat date picker toggle. We need two options. This toggle is for calendar icon. This is for calendar icon. And this is for date control, date picker. This is for date picker. Toggle calendar icon as button, actually. Toggle means it's a toggler button like, right? Now see what we are designing here. So we have a form field. We have a mat form field inside mat label, and input is mat input. Okay, mat input. After mat input, so I am giving a mat date picker. For that, we need to first import date picker. Okay, so let's go to the app module, and here we need to import. So we need to import. So that is from. So at the net. So Angular / material / so date picker. That is one. At date picker module. Okay. One more. So we need native. So here we need native date picker module. Native date picker also. This native date picker, so mat native date module, right? We need that also. So mat native date module, right? And this mat native date module, so whatever the module is generally, this mat native date module is actually a member. It is a member of core library of material. So that means we have to use this date module. This is date module is the member of material core module. That means I need to go here. I need to import this from the material core module. That means we have to define import, and from at the net Angular / material. So in that we have core, right? In the material core, we have mat native date module. So we need this mat native date module. We need to import that. So this is required. This is required. And we need to register these two. We need to register these two. That means let's go into the app modules location. Yeah. And here, so mat date picker module. Okay. And mat native date module. These two are required. Now we can go and we need to define here mat input, and here we have to use a mat date picker toggler. We need a toggle, mat date picker toggle. Okay, after that, so that is the toggler. After input we have a toggler, and below that we need a mat date picker. We need a mat date picker. So we need a mat date picker. I will save this. That means we need a label, we need a text box, and we need a date toggler after the text box. Then the date picker comes below. Now this design will get you like this, right? Now you can see there is a calendar icon here, And when I click that, so it has to get me a date and display the date. But we haven't mentioned which date picker should work. This toggler should work. Actually, when you are defining the toggler, you can keep the toggler at any location. Like you can keep the toggler for as mat suffix, mat prefix. The toggler will come suffix. That means it will be right side like this. That looks better. That means you keep mat suffix, then right side it will come. So we can put mat prefix, mat suffix. Okay, for which date picker it should work? Work for this date picker. There may be so many date pickers. Then how you will identify this date picker? We use an ID reference, hash picker. So that is the picker. Okay. This is the reference. This is the reference. This you will learn while working with forms concept. So through this reference, that means an ID reference is given a called picker. Mat date picker toggle should work for this picker. That means for, we have to use for. It should work for that picker. So little bit implementation and communication between the components in material also differs. It changes a little bit. So that is okay. That's fine. Another point is when you select a date inside the date picker, that date should be stored inside text box. Then text box uses an property, mat date picker property. The date will come from the picker. Picker contains the date. It will get the date and display. That means this text box will get the date by using mat date picker property, and it will display in the text box. Now when I save this, you can see here. Now I click here, so then it should show a calendar. And here I can choose a date from the calendar. I can choose a date in the calendar. And the date will be stored there. That means now we are creating a date picker. So user can select a date. User can choose any date and it will display. So that means you don't need to write much functionality, but communication between them is very important. Configuring the communication between them is very important, right? Now there are a lot of attributes to define actually. That means you can set limit for dates, you can set range for dates, you can do everything. But hundreds of the properties of date picker, you have to learn, you have to know from its library. So that's like nobody can teach you that, right? So you can use everything possible. If you see anything in a website, what do you think? You have seen something on a website and you asked me a question like, in that website I have seen like that, is it possible? If not possible, how that website has designed it? What do you say, Kumar? Everything is possible. Only the point is you should know how it can be done. What are the attributes required for yes? Am I right? Yeah. There should not be a question like that. Like in that website, I have seen like this. Is it possible? If it's not possible, how that website is using it, right? So I will not show everything here related to material. I will just show you a point. You have to explore by yourself and you have to learn all the material related attributes. We are not going to spend time, months of time on material concept. Okay. This is the concept to explore as a developer. That tells how much development knowledge you are having and how much you have learned till now. You can put your skills and show, right? That you try by yourself by exploring the material library, all other formats and other options. Okay. So we cannot just sit and try like, yeah, so we cannot just sit here and try exploring every point, right? Yeah, already I showed you now. From where you will find that all the libraries required for that material official IO is there now. Material IO library is there, right? In this material IO library components, you see date picker component, and you want to know the complete functionality. There is an API. Go to the API and you can see these are all the properties of that date picker. If I start telling about everything inside this, that means one month for every component it will take. I hope you understood, right? Every component has a lot of things to do. So that is nowhere in the world, nobody will explore you all this for you and tell you. Online also, nobody explains you all these and tells you. They will just give you an one single approach. Based on that, as a developer, you have to continue, right? So that is important. See, hundreds of options are there for every concept. So what is the method required? What is the option required? What are its properties? How it sends the data? What are the classes? What are the dependencies? Everything will be here. You want define a range. You can see, you can give a date range, current range, minimum, to, from, everything. You need to just understand the strategy for that, right? That is, as a developer, you have to explore by yourself, right? Right. So this is the basic thing, how we can implement. Few components I will show, others you should try by yourself only, right? Yeah. So now once you know this, then yeah, you have a community. Angular community supports materials also, right? It will help you if you are facing any issues. It is directly on GitHub community, right? So Angular material have a GitHub community. You can directly subscribe to that, and you can post your issues. They can even resolve your issues for you according to your requirements. I will just give you few approaches, then others you try by yourself, right? This is one example. Now some more options I will show you. Two, three more examples I will show you. That's enough. Then rest of things you try. Because once you see 2-3 approaches working, then you will get a clarity on how you can do by yourself others. Huh? So then tomorrow we will continue, right? Tomorrow we will see other components and we can go into another concept. Once tomorrow, few more topics I will